Hey, hello everyone. Good morning in Canada, Winnipeg, Manitoba. Good morning in other parts of the world. Good afternoon, good evening. Yeah, whatever part you're in, we really appreciate you joining us this time. It's been a great day, and come on, it's the month is fast going. This is the middle of
Even fast
the
going.
day is even fast
The
going.
year.
The year is even fast going. That means you need to get up, start doing something that's impacting lives, right? Yeah, then that's the only way we can impact lives. So don't just sit down. If you're crawling, make sure your crawling is impacting lives. If you are tiptoeing, make sure your tiptoeing is impacting whatever thing. If you're walking, make sure you're walking.
Running.
If you're running, make sure that's impacting lives positively, not negatively. Yeah, whatever you do, no one is created empty. Everybody has been created with something in them to change the world, make it a better place. That is the ultimate reason why you are today. So the reason why you see tomorrow is also because you've impacted lives, keep impacting lives, and the lives you're changing daily are giving thanks to God for meeting you, for being the light on their path, right? Yeah. So welcome today again for another session, another episode of Director Distractor. So, it's a question to you. Are you directing or you're distracting? In any field of life you find yourself, as a husband, as a father, as a children, as a leader, as a mentor, as a role model, when the gospel was presented to us, it was presented in a way, in a simple form for all to understand and to go out there and be Christ-like in anything, in whatever thing you do. Are you being referred to a believer in Christ? Are you distracting or you're directing? The social media has been full of a lot of distractions that if you keep scrolling, it gets into your mind, into your head, and that brought about a topic, mental health, and your mental capability to reason function begins to deteriorate. So we are here in this section with one of our guests. I'll just leave you to talk about that, right? About mental health. And last week we talked about understanding mental health and spirituality.
And this week is just the
The
continuation.
continuation, a part two of it, we'll be talking about mental illness and spirituality.
And with us in the studio, we have Greg.
Yeah.
Nyobole. Greg,
Nyobole,
we had
yeah.
him. Yeah, we had him last time, and the session with him was amazing. If you have not watched it, you can go back and watch the part one of this topic, mental health and spirituality, part one. And today we're moving forward with the part two. And I'm just going to read a little bit about our guest today. Like I said, his name is Gregory Nyobole. Nyobole. Gregory is a nurse and a community mental health worker with the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority, working with clients in downtown East. He has also worked with the WRHA Crisis Response Center, Crisis Stabilization Unit, and Siloam Missions Health Center. He's serving the homeless in Winnipeg, a personal trainer, and a certified Zentangle teacher. Gregory is a lifelong learner on a never-ending journey for well-being, insight, and faith. He serves as a board for Reconciliation Thunder, a non-profit organization developing transformative relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians to implement the 94 calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The next face you're going to be seeing now is our guest,
Greg.
Greg.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to be back.
Good to have you again. Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us again on another episode of Director or Distractor. And we thank you for being a director, right? Like Sam asked the viewers, are you directing or are you distracting? No matter what your title is, as a mother, as a father, as a director in your office at your place of work, are you directing or distracting? In your own word, There are so many ways we can impact people, right? Maybe by just clicking the share button on this video, you might be helping someone out there to understand how crucial their mental health is. So we're just going to leave it to Greg, and he's going to continue from there. Remember to share, like, and then subscribe to our channel.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, Greg. Good to have you.
Good to have you.
Good to be back. And
Yeah.
I just thought it might be good to start again today, just recognizing the tragedy that our Indigenous brothers and sisters are going through with the discovery of the deaths of hundreds of children in residential schools. It broke in the news about the discovery in Kamloops a few weeks ago, and since then there's Brandon and many other sites. We keep learning more. So that for sure is going to trigger a lot of trauma in the surviving families of those tragedies and the generations that are still affected to this day by that. So it might be good too if we just open today with just acknowledging our treaty territories here. And
right.
I'll just do that by acknowledging that we live and work in the territories of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Dakota, Dene, Métis, and Oji-Cree nations. Winnipeg itself is in Treaty 1 territory, and that's the ancestral and traditional homeland of the Anishinaabe peoples. Treaty 1 was signed in 1871, and it took this territory from 7 local Anishinaabe First Nations and made this land available for settler use and ownership. So we just want to acknowledge that today. Also, just to remind our viewers that Monday, June 21st is Indigenous Peoples Day, so we just celebrate with our brothers and sisters again this year, which, is kind of taking on a bit of a day of mourning in light of these discoveries. So just reach out to our brothers and sisters however we can.
Right.
And I thought it might be good to start today. Today we're going to sort of focus on spirituality and how that connects with mental health. But maybe we can just review a bit of what we covered last time by just throwing out a little information about, what is mental illness anyway. And it's really a disorder that affects one's mood and thinking and behavior. It impairs someone's ability to think, feel, process, and respond to life situations in appropriate ways. So some examples you hear terms of include depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, eating disorders, and addiction disorders. And common symptoms, if, to just sort of identify if someone is going through mental illness or possibly experiencing it. Things to watch for are sleep or appetite changes, especially if they're dramatic shifts. Could be mood changes, that are rapid and dramatic. Could be either the lows of depression to some highs of mania. Sort of, fast action and inability to slow down. Could also manifest in drops in functions, ability to function either at work or at school or in social activities. You might see someone quitting sports or suddenly failing in school or having difficulty doing things that they didn't have difficulty with before. Could be problems thinking, difficulty with concentration, memory, or speech just doesn't seem logical. Could be heightened sensitivity to sight, sounds, smells, or touch. Could be apathy as well, just a loss of initiative or desire to participate in activities that were joyful before. Or it could be a feeling of being disconnected just from oneself or one's surroundings. And there could be examples of illogical thinking, sort of unusual or exaggerated beliefs, about personal powers or understanding of, day-to-day events, or a logical or magical thinking that might have been typical in childhood, but now are showing up as an adult. And that could be nervousness, fear or suspicion of others that wasn't present before, or just any other kind of unusual behavior that's odd or peculiar. So some things to watch for that might be pointing towards mental illness. So little refresher from our talk last time.
Yeah.
For those that weren't with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the first question we're going to be asking you today, or do you want to say anything before?
Well, it said it all, a caption, which is a good way to start. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah.
So as we all know that the topic today is mental health and spirit, ask you that how can you, in just a simple terms for everyone to understand?
Yeah. Definition of spirituality has really sort of changed over the years. I think traditionally it often referred to more of a religious kind of definition, which was oriented at, towards God, and, practiced by founders of the faith and so forth throughout history. I think in early Christianity, spirituality was sort of referring to life that was oriented by the Holy Spirit and its impact in one's life. In modern times, the term is sort of spreading to sort of all religious practices throughout the world. And it's generally, I think, sort of referring to one's own personal, I guess, expression or understanding of their meaning and connection with God. So in that sense, it's more of a different connotation than religious practices per se. So I suppose that we could say spirituality is a focus on who God is and our understanding of that, whereas religion is perhaps how we express that worship towards God. So who versus how is, I think, the simplest way I could explain the difference between spirituality and religion.
And
yeah,
that's supposed to be the next question. Yeah, but I think you already.
Yeah, it's okay. You can ask it anyway.
The next question is, is spirituality the same thing as religion?
Yeah,
because maybe there are so many. I always believe maybe they're the same, right? Spirituality and religion, right? Yeah, but how can we differentiate between both of them?
Yeah, again, I would say spirituality is related to who God is and our personal understanding of who is God, who is our creator, who is that higher power in our own personal experience, and how do we interact. And religion is more sort of behaviors and practices that we worship God with or express that. There's probably, technical definitions that religion is, social and culturally determined. It's behaviors and practices about our morals, our beliefs, our worldview, sacred texts, sanctified places, ethics, organizations, all of that sort of corporate gathering with others as a way of acknowledging God. And I think the difference with spirituality is sort of very individual in how one understands and connects with God. So sort of from your perspective as pastors in the church, you have other definitions you can share with our guests. What are some differences that you also see between the two terms?
Yeah, the differences between what I see between the two terms. Well, it's a broad topic and it's so deep, but in a simple lay form, the spirituality and the religion is the activities we perform, right? Like
Hmm.
the religion is you do the baptism is an activity, like even though
Yeah.
it has a spiritual implication connotation, it's an activity. The fasting and prayer, religion based, it's an activity even though it has a spiritual implication. So it's just understanding of how not to make it the major reason why we exist,
Yeah.
where a lot
I
of
think
people get it wrong.
I
Mhm.
think Jesus warns us in Matthew to be very careful with our religious acts, that we do not
That's
become
right.
like Pharisees and be so
Hmm.
consumed by rules and
Hmm.
rituals that we miss the
Hmm.
point of expressing love and care to others. So, yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah, those are the
Yeah,
differences
that's great.
I see. Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Greg. And I think we need to come back and
Mhm.
talk about this topic because it's one easy way for someone to get distracted. Because and let's
Yes.
not go there because it's not part of what we talk about today. So I don't want to deviate because it's a whole lot of distraction coming off
Idea an
from
idea for another episode.
an idea for another episode. Great. Thank you, Greg. So the other question is, what are the spiritual dimensions in mental health? How important is it for us to understand these dimensions?
Came across sort of one study that was done um, by some professors at Columbia University in New York in 2016. And they used a whole variety of measures to define spirituality. And they came up, I think, with some 40 different categories. But
Hmm.
they ultimately they studied different countries, I think China, India,
Hmm.
North America, and they came up with sort of five dimensions to what they call as a universal kind of spiritual experience. And they came up with number one being love, that being both in the context of personal relationships or as sort of a sacred sort of reality with the creator. The
Hmm.
second dimension they came up with was unifying interconnectedness. So,
Hmm.
trying to get across that idea of how we as individuals connect with other people in our world.
Hmm.
And a third characteristic they called altruism. So, having a sense of commitment that goes beyond oneself, but to help other humans in our universe and on our planet. I guess a fourth dimension that they recognized or category of practices were all of those that were involved in contemplative practice. So that could be represented by activities like prayer, meditation,
Hmm.
yoga, just those types of devotional times or expression of one's spirituality. And I guess the
Hmm.
fifth is what we would call religion, the religious and spiritual commitments to one's life, how one participates in their community and how they examine their lives. So
Hmm.
those are some of the ways that we can look at different spiritual dimensions and connect that with our mental health.
Hmm. 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 Uh,
You good?
okay. Oh, we good? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so our Vis, if you have any question, please feel free to go ahead and type a question in the chat button, and then our guest is here to help you
answer your questions.
your
Yeah,
questions.
it's an open conversation. And
Yes.
please don't forget to share with someone, share within your group, share within your network, WhatsApp, Telegram, and Facebook, and share so that someone out there need to be informed and someone out there need to be helped that has been going through something, and we just need to help them out. And the only way we can do this is by you helping us to share it and then ask a question, and then we'll be able to help. Greg is right here to also share from his wealth of experience that he's had dealing with the mental health cases. All right, Greg.
So the next question, Greg, is okay. So what is the connection between our emotional and our spiritual well-being?
There's been also a lot of research into, what are emotions, and
Mm,
basically, emotions are the feelings that we experience as humans, in anything that's going on in our life. And I think they've started studying those emotions over the years, trying to, understand them. If you do it like a Google search, you'll see everything from there's 4 basic emotions, others might categorize it as 6, others 10, others as, hundreds. Some view it as a spectrum on a wheel that can go from negative emotions to positive emotions. But some of the basic human emotions, we could maybe summarize them by saying they're happiness and sadness, disgust, fear, surprise, anger. There could be, other categories like pride, shame, embarrassment, or excitement.
mm,
And part of, sort of good mental health is having an ability to express and share those emotions with others, with your partner, with your family, friends. Just being able to express those rather than keep them bottled up inside. I think the studies show that men tend to avoid discussing emotions, and women find that much easier. And maybe as pastors, you can reflect if that's accurate or not, based on your own friendships. Uh, I
yeah.
know for me, that's always interestingly being a challenge communicating emotions. So,
Mm,
and then you have the different personality types, introvert versus extrovert, and how that ties in with how you can express and define your emotions with others. So, I would say, sort of the connection between emotional and spiritual well-being is just the ability to connect and describe those emotions. We can
mm,
think of all of the examples in Psalms, for example, where David is expressing his emotions, crying out to God, everything from deep despair to joy and dancing in are expressed in the Psalms. So just making that part of our prayer life and
mm,
communication with God and others. And yeah, just expressing our spirituality and sharing those emotions in all of
mm,
those spheres, because they're all, connected in how we express ourselves. So you can
mm,
think about how you share those emotions with others,
mm,
and as part of one's worship or devotional life.
mm, mm, mm. Yeah, yeah, that's actually absolutely true, Greg. Because I actually made a discovery of late, even though I've studied the book of Psalms several years, but just of late, I made the discovery that the book of Psalm itself is written based on emotion. Most of
Mhm.
those that wrote the book of Psalm, when we look at Moses, Moses wrote part of the book of Psalms and put all of those together. Moses, Ezekiah, David, and then the host of them, and then the unknown people who also put those pieces together came out of a deep expression, out of a deep emotion, translating it in words. So, which is actually part of what you've just said. Thank you for that. Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah. If I may ask, you said there are positive emotion and there are negative emotion, right? So, how can my spirituality level help me to overcome the negative, my negative emotion?
I think, what I've seen, in the Psalms and others is the expression of those negative emotions to God in our
Mm.
prayers, and letting Him carry
Mm,
those burdens, and
absolutely.
casting our anxieties on Him, for example, and then just focusing on the blessings that He has granted in our
Mm.
lives. No matter
Mm,
where we're at, we can
mm,
recognize how we've been blessed and
mm,
focus on that. And you know, through giving thanks for that, we turn
Mm.
those emotions around. And there's
mm,
also, the Bible tells us to avoid comparing ourselves to others in
others.
Mm.
situations,
Mm.
but to
Mm.
just, each day has enough worry of its own, and to
Mm.
focus on one day at a time, and trusting God to work things out for us. And it's sort of not a question of will I go through difficulties in life. It's more a question
Mm.
of when I go through
Mm,
those difficulties, we'll all experience something like that. And um, God, I think, gives each of us a personal, individual journey to grow on. And
Mm.
the
Mm.
emphasis should be on discovering what He wants us to learn from these experiences.
Mm.
So those are some of the suggestions I have, is to take those negative situations, reflect on them, give them back to
Mm.
God in prayer, and grow from them. I
Mm.
also, actually, just the other day, I came across a devotional where the topic was talking about storms and how to go through them. And
mm.
it compared cows and mice as an
Wow.
example. So it says that when cows sense a storm coming, they tend to gather together and try and run away from the storm.
Mm.
Whereas mice will run directly into the storm, because that's the fastest way to get through a storm, is to approach it head
Mm,
on and
Mm.
plow through it. And you'll get through the storm quicker. So that devotional gave me a lot to think about. And
Mm.
that definitely applies to our emotional and mental health as well when we're going through difficulties.
Mm. 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 Wow.
thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Greg.
You've heard it. Greg has said it.
Yeah.
What do you do? Just think about it. When you're going through storms in life,
Mm-hmm.
what do you do? Do you
Mm-hmm.
complain? Do you grumble?
Or you compare?
Do you compare yourself to
Mm-hmm.
people? Do you just sit down there and start grumbling and wumbling and be mad at
Mm.
yourself?
Mm.
You have to
Mhm.
discover something that is going to make you happy, something that is going to bring you out of that negative emotion. Like for me, I might just put on the music, just
Absolutely.
dance,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
just find something.
Mm-hmm.
Something, it might be maybe you want to read your Bible, it might be you want to take books and
Yeah.
read, you might want to go out and say hi to your friends, right? Just discover something that is going to be helpful to you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's right.
And don't sit down in the storm. Don't
Yeah. Don't stay in the
don't
storm.
stay in there. Just get
Mhm.
up.
Yeah. Don't stay in the storm.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Greg.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Greg. That's
you really ministered to me as well, right?
yeah. Yeah, great. Yeah, and for those who have joined, thank you very much. I think there are a whole couple of friends that have joined. Oh, thank you so much for joining. I have a brother friend, Pastor, being Pastor Show from US. I have a brother friend here, Folusho Ayokule. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you. Thank you and thank you and thank you. Wherever you're joining from, please indicate, let's know. We acknowledge that. We appreciate you joining. And you take a further step by helping us share within your group, among your friends, your network, family. Share. You don't know who can be impacted positively. Just a little bit, one step at a time, can change someone's life. Thank you, thank you, and thank you. Thank you, Greg. Yeah. So,
Yeah, so let's continue with our discussion: mental health and spirituality.
spirituality. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to ask him the next?
Yeah. So the next question, Greg, is what are the benefits of spirituality in religion when it comes to mental health?
Sure. Well, there's benefits to our mental health from both spirituality as well as religion. I think I've said earlier that spirituality is sort of a connection, a personal connection of ourselves to something bigger, to God, to Creator. Helps us as individuals to look inside ourselves and understand ourselves, and also trying to figure out how we fit in with the rest of the world. So spirituality helps us to understand our interpretation and the meaning of life, why we exist, why we are here. It positively influences our mental health in terms of our individuality. It enhances our sense of self and our empowerment to make decisions and choices in our life. It helps us to concentrate on what we believe in and our own personal growth. And it helps us to accept any other person in the world, whether they share our faith or they don't. Helps us to be a director rather than a detractor.
Distractor.
And it helps with our mindfulness, spirituality. It encourages meditation and self-reflection. It gives us our own personal meaning and life philosophy, and helps us to express ourselves in kind of any form, really. That can be art, poetry, prayer, how we decide on our religious practices. It helps with our unity with our surroundings. It gives us a sense of belonging in the world, inspires appreciation and awareness of our physical bodies and our physical world that we live in. There's also benefits to religion in mental health, because religion, as I said, is sort of the how we express our spirituality. It's the rituals and structure that we use. It's usually involving the other people that we connect to and worship with, so that corporate type of expression of spirituality. And those all have good positive impacts on mental health. There's been studies that show that religion in and of itself, not including the spiritual side, but just the act of religion reduces suicide rates, substance use, all of those negative symptoms. So some benefits to religion in mental health is that sense of community. It helps with our social connections with others that share our faith. It creates a sense of belonging to a group, and it gives us a trustworthy and safe social environment. And the ritualistic part of religion can help us cope with difficult life situations. So, for example, a funeral and the death of a loved one, the religious part of that helps us cope with the death. It can provide structure, regularity, and predictability in our life. And it allows time for rest in the religious holidays and the Sabbath. All of those are benefits to our mental health. And the teaching aspect of religion gives us guidelines to live by. So understanding of how to do the right thing teaches us compassion, forgiveness, and gratitude. It identifies life lessons, even in challenging situations that we all go through. So those are some of the examples of religion itself, as distinct from the examples of spirituality that we talked about earlier.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm sure maybe someone might be watching, or someone might watch it later, and they might want to know, how can I be spiritual, right? Is Are there rules? Are there some things I have to do for me to be spiritual?
I think when it comes to spirituality, sort of, the definition that we go by is that's very individual. So we need to identify those practices that resonate with us, that give us joy in our connection with God. So for some, it might be singing and dancing. For others, it might be beautiful liturgy, readings, and scripture. Others could be prayer, being a prayer warrior on the helps of others. Others, it's acts of service towards others and expressing yourself that way. So spirituality, I say, is a very individual way of connecting with God. It involves discovering what our gifts are as a unique individual created by God, and then, giving those gifts and talents back in service. So building that part into your life.
So I don't have to go to church before I can be spiritual. I don't have to be in the mosque or any religious setting before I can be spiritual, right?
Absolutely. And or I think it can happen in either order. For some people, they might have their sense of spirituality, definitely by themselves as an individual. With others, the corporate gathering with others in a church or in a religion helps them to form the spiritual side of themselves. And also, as they learn, teachings from the scriptures and develop, for example, spiritual disciplines that, while they're learning it in a religious setting, they can apply that to their individual spiritual growth. So they're all interconnected. And scripture tells us not to avoid gathering together to worship. So, there are parts of our spirituality that are individual. There are parts that need to develop with others.
Yeah, we need one another.
Yeah, we need one another. Yes.
Yeah, we cannot be an island on our own. We need people. We need support from people.
You just need help.
You need help.
You need to reach out. And that's why it's good to always reach out to few people you haven't seen in a while. Hey, how you doing? How's everything? That could help as well, right? Or what do you think?
Yeah. It's absolutely.
Yeah, you need to reach out. Yeah, and like you said, the scripture that says that do not forsake the gathering of brethren. It helps. Corporate gathering, it helps as well. Yeah,
it encourages us.
It encourages
one another. Yeah, at times when you're down, you need the other person to kind of lift you up.
That's right. Yeah.
That's why we need the coming together and supporting one another in worship,
encouragement,
and encouragement. It goes a long way, right? You don't know maybe the kind of encouragement you're going to give to your friend, how that is going to bring that person out of that depression.
That's right.
And you don't know what that person is thinking, suicidal thoughts. Nobody's above thinking about committing suicide. That is why we need to reach out. That is why we need the support of your friends, of your parents, of your loved ones. We have to connect.
Even a smile from someone, can help.
Just a handshake, just hi, hello, how are you
can't
doing?
shake, but you can.
Yeah, we cannot shake.
The isolation is making everyone like, I can shake you, but I can just wave.
Yeah, but you can just wave. A smile can go a long way to people. Hello, how are you? I remember one day I met during Father's Day. Oh, yes. Happy Father's Day to all men. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Thank God I remember. Greg, happy Father's Day to you and to
you.
all our viewers.
To all the men out
To
there.
all the men out there.
Happy Father's Day.
You are great.
Yeah.
There is something in you as a man. You are great. Just believe that in you. Just believe it. Don't let anything weigh you down. Nothing. Don't let anything weigh you down. Believe in yourself that you're a man. So let me go back to this story. And I just saw this man. He's an elderly man. And I just myself smiling. Hey, happy Father's Day. How are you? And blah, blah, blah. And the man said, wow, you are the first person that is going to tell me, wish me happy Father's Day. And I was so happy. I'm like, thank God I just said it. You might go a long way. I'm sure that man that day was so happy and he thanked me and said, I am so relieved. I'm so thankful that you said that word. So you never can tell.
Yeah, you can tell. Yeah,
you never can tell. Just a smile. I know people are going through so many things, right? And even you yourself, we're going through so many things, right? But that is why we do not have to forsake the assembly of other believers, other people, so that we can lift ourselves up, so that we can encourage one another.
Yeah.
So that I can
Thank you for sharing
lean on you
Yeah.
and cry on your shoulder.
And that's,
So let's go back.
That's one of the stressors of the pandemic, is that, as churches, we can't gather the way we used to. So we're trying these other means like electronic or Zoom or online, but it's still not as, definitely takes away from the human connection that we're all missing. And so I just, continue to pray for, the vaccine, that it will be effective in helping us get through this pandemic, and we can gather again. But even this pandemic, God is using to teach all of us. So it's important that we discover those lessons and be ready to really celebrate when we can gather together again.
Yeah, I can't wait.
You can wait. People cannot wait to gather together and celebrate. Okay, so let's go back to our topic: mental health and spirituality.
And if you're joining, wherever you're joining from, thank you. We really appreciate you for making this happen. And then you can help us take a further step by sharing within your group, network, friends, families, brothers, sisters, anywhere, whoever you have within your reach. Please help us share this. Thank you very much. And don't forget, if you have any question related to mental health and mental illness and spirituality, feel free to share your question, and it's an open conversation. We'll be able to, Greg is right here with us, and then be able to share his thought on it. Thank you very much once again. Yeah, Greg, thank you for this. And then, so the next question for you will be, what example of mental health do we see in the Bible, and how were they treated?
Yeah, I think I've approached it with some examples of mental illness in the Bible and how they were helped. But it's kind of the same question in a way. I guess some of the more dramatic examples could be King Saul, for example. Whether we would use terms like clinical depression today versus evil spirit. He experienced, paranoia and anger, which are certainly part of clinical depression. Saul tried to kill David several times in his jealousy, of him. Interestingly, though, early on, David was, first introduced to Saul to play his harp and soothe King Saul's depression with music. So we see an example of music therapy there. We see other examples where, obviously mental illness was known in biblical times. We have David himself pretending to be mentally ill to get himself out of a bind. There's an example of him trying to escape King Ashish, acting like a madman, it says, making marks on the doors of the gate and letting saliva run down his beard. So others would say, look at this man, he's insane. Why bring him into me? So, there's examples there where there's, other examples in the Bible where what we see in some symptoms of mental illness were described as people being possessed by demons because they heard voices or saw visions. And that's a topic for a whole other episode in itself.
Yeah.
Other examples that we have is in the book of Daniel, King Nebuchadnezzar, having visions and asking Daniel to interpret those visions. And Daniel predicted a time of madness for the king, and indeed he did become insane. It says, eating grass like cattle and letting his hair grow like feathers of an eagle and his nails like the claw of a bird. And it says that he experienced insanity for 7 years. And we've mentioned earlier how many of the Psalms express deep emotion. Some could even be like severe depression. Psalm 22, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me, so far from the words of my groaning? My God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer. I'm poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart has turned to wax. People stare and gloat over me. How wretched is that experience that the psalmist is going through and trying to express his pain to God. And then we have Paul's examples. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. So again, that idea of focusing on how we've been blessed and not to be anxious and to trust God. There's other examples in Samuel talking about King Saul having a harmful spirit from God that tormented him. And that's the example where David would play with the harp to refresh the king. It says, Saul was refreshed and was well, and the harmful spirit departed from him. So there's some examples there. Others are, just even Jesus himself expressing his sorrow at Gethsemane. Sit here while I go to pray. And taking with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, Jesus began to be sorrowful and troubled. He said to them, my soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me. So here Jesus is just asking for others to be with him in his time of sorrow. So part of the treatment of these emotions is not being alone, but to reach out to those around you. Deuteronomy has a verse that says, Yahweh will strike you with madness and blindness and confusion of mind. So all symptoms of mental illness. We look at Job and the experience that he went through, not understanding what was happening to him. Talks about his friends who were with him, saying they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights, and no one said a word to him because they saw how great his suffering was. So again, an example of just the value of companionship when you're going through, these crippling conditions. And there's the whole issue is, mental illness. Is it physical? Is it because of sin? How are all these concepts connected? It talks about the disciples seeing a man blind since birth, and them saying, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" And Jesus answered, "It was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him." So there's part of the mystery of why we all experience these different conditions, whether it be physical illness or mental illness. Part of it is that God might be wanting to display his work through us. Timothy refers to using medicines, saying, in this case, stop drinking only water, but use a little wine because of your stomach and your frequent illnesses. So, and then we have Luke, one of the disciples who is a physician. So the value of medicine in our lives, and not to rule it out as being, unspiritual. Again, the verses about anxiety, to cast that onto God with prayer and petition, and having attitude of thanksgiving. So, there's so many examples when we go through the scriptures. We look at Elijah, his mental health during his conflict with Queen Jezebel. He fled the country and wanted to die. And in that situation, God dealt with his physical needs first, feeding him, giving him time to sleep. God knew his journey was too much for his current physical state. And then after Elijah rested and recharged physically, God gave him encouragement, a new purpose, and an assistant. So there's an example of how, just physical help to someone is maybe a first step in overcoming mental illness. And then once those physical needs are met, we can work on emotional and mental strengthening. Jonah's another example of a holy person whose mental health was tied to some bad choices. He also, after sparing Nineveh, Jonah fled and wanted to die. Again, an instance of severe depression, and partly his rebellion to God, directly disobeying him. But, even after, God brought him back, he still had a period of time where his heart wasn't lined up with God's desires. So, it was really only until that could be addressed that his depression ended. So many examples, in the Bible of instances of mental health and how they were treated by different ways. So, an exciting topic to explore for sure.
Yeah, that's a very good topic for another edition with you, Greg.
Yeah, the time is
well, maybe I'll get to ask a question to you as a worship leader. How do you see the act of worship just lifting people up? Like, just like you were saying earlier, Kemi, about dancing and singing, and that, those forms of worship to lift our spirit.
Yeah, I will go for it.
Yeah.
So as I was, yeah, thank you for that question. It's really, really very, very important for most worshippers to know this, that as a worship leader, an act of worship and how it resonates or connect with helping someone out of a mental instability or mental illness is music is a language that let's just say music outside of the spiritual part of it. The music itself has power and it has strength, can draw people in. Just a short form of that, and it's a common language that everyone understands wherever you are. The moment you hear the strings, the music, the sounds, it triggers something in you. Now, the spiritual part of worship, as a worship leader, that's when it's something different entirely. It's worshiping my inability, seeing my ability in God, my inability complete in God. So I'm totally, and because the Bible says that the reason why we are created and the reason why God brought the people of Israelites out of Egypt is for so that they can worship Him. They were people of no they were incapable. They couldn't do anything, but God brought them out to worship Him. So, as a worship leader, my connection with the audience, with the worshiper, is so that they can see God to help them in their inability. And that now comes to the kind of song I sing. I don't need to sing songs to entertain them, but to sing songs that has lyrically that's meaningful, that speaks to every need. Lyrically, it touches their heart. Lyrically, hearing, seeing the lyric, singing the lyric has meaning to them, and coupled with sounds, it's way it goes far to, and it sticks in here, and it's helped them to see, oh, beautiful God is. Also, as a worship leader, it creates a vibe of a person. I'm particular about sound when it gets to music. If you play a sound that is not in tune, I'm like, oh, that's off. No, 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 no. And the same way people going through mental illness, sound matters. You can't be playing off sound, off tune, and expect someone
Nice
to like, oh, you're making it worse. You're making noise. It's not harmonized. So it's a way, it's so deep and it's so much. As a band, you need to harmonize. It has to be in harmony. It needs to sing together with the song and the lyric, so that the person singing. And let me say this here as a worship leader: it doesn't matter the whole number of lyrics. One line out of the whole lyric could minister to someone. I've had experience. I've had someone say, "There is a sentence in that song that turns me on. Please stay there." While I was serving one of my spiritual father, a bishop, back in my own country, we were leading worship, and he just whispered, or he wrote a note through the usher and say, "Please stay on that lyric. Don't leave that line." And while the band were playing, I just stood on that lyric repeatedly. I was singing that lyric repeatedly, repeatedly, and then for a couple of minutes, before you know it, everybody was turned on, just because that lyric made. I'll never forget the song. The song is "Above All Powers, Above All Kings" by Damwen. It's that I can't forget that song. We stood on that line for a long period of time, and everybody was soaked. Everybody, it made the prayer easy. It made the prayer easy. The pastor didn't even bother to raise prayer. The song itself, that lyric itself, turned to prayer. And do you know what? At the end of the service, when everybody was ready to go, we didn't go. Everybody, we've shared the grace. We're ready to leave. Everybody still stay in the auditorium because of the atmosphere was so strong and was so powerful that I don't want to leave this. I don't just want to let this atmosphere leave. So, as a worship leader, we need to be very sensitive about the song we sing. We're not just out there to entertain. There are needy people. I am also needy, but I need to prepare in my closed door, in my secret place. Study the book of Psalm. Use the book of Psalm to minister to myself and see God above my need. And then, so that when I step out to lead people in worship, I'm not leading at the place of need. I'm leading at the place where God will meet their need, because I'm introducing them to God that I have met and that can help them lift up their burdens and heal their diseases and make them whole. Yeah, that's from the perspective of a worship leader.
Amen.
Yeah, amen.
Good.
Yeah, sorry, I just feel I can go on and on,
I
but it's
know.
not my day.
You can go.
She's already pinching me to stop.
I know.
I feel so
You can
pumped
go
up.
on
I
and
can go on,
on.
but I just feel I can, but it's not. It's Greg's day. Yay! Yeah. So, Greg, for the
The
just go the last question. Yeah.
because our time is
Yeah.
fast spent. Okay, so if someone is experiencing a lot of pain and distress right now, what can they do?
Yeah. So I think, as I mentioned last time, the best thing to do immediately is not to be alone, to reach out to others, whoever the natural supports are in your life. First of all, to God, your higher power, to your spouse, partner, or significant other, to family members, to friends, to colleagues, to your pastors, elders, or advisors. When we're feeling emotionally well, it's easy to be cheerful and calm and interested in life, but it's the opposite when we're not. So we need to have that strong buffer of having a sense of community. And that can be really a hard thing to do if one is suffering from persistent mental illness. They can feel so much alone. So it's important to reach out and build those relationships in your life. But that being said, one could really get to the point of being in a crisis where they're feeling suicidal or that they're just so mired in their depression or whichever mental illness that it's hard to reach out. So in that case, I recommend seeking professional help. That's as easy as a phone number to the mobile crisis unit here in Winnipeg. I'll share some phone numbers, both in Winnipeg and Canadian numbers that people can reach out to. So definitely, if one is feeling suicidal, or if you're a family member and you see that your loved one is not getting the help that they need, you can initiate those calls also. So the mobile crisis services is 24/7 here in Winnipeg. It's 204-940-1781. And that is based out of the Crisis Response Center at 817 Bannatyne. That's on the Health Science Center campus here in Winnipeg. Also open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But if those, for whatever reason, are hard to get in contact with, you can take your loved one to hospital, urgent care, and ER, and they will redirect them there. There's also some national crisis lines. The one in Canada is 1-833-456-4566. And then for if you want more of an Indigenous or First Nation perspective, there's a couple of crisis lines as well. 1-844-927-5433, or another option is 1-855-242-3310. So definitely reach out for help. Don't do this alone, and get the help you need to turn things around. So yeah, just reach out for professional help if you're alone, but best place to start is with natural supports in your life, whoever that is.
Yeah.
And then I suppose sort of another thing to keep in mind is just pathways in general for good mental health. And we talked about 6 points last time. Being active, healthy body helps with a healthy mind. Being social, again, needing the supportive family, close friends in your life to have a sense of security, belonging, and happiness. Being curious, keep your brain healthy and enhance your resilience. I think I'm a perpetual student. I'll be a student until the day I die, always looking at something new. Be mindful, be aware of the here and now. Just the everything from the sensations of your body sitting in your chair or wherever you are today, feeling those physical sensations, breathing, concentrating on what that breath feels like as you inhale and exhale, and just appreciating the gift of being alive. It's important to be purposeful, to have a sense of purpose that can give you some direction and meaning in your life. So all of us are born with gifts and skills given to us by God, and to discover those and have purpose in using them. And then sort of the last is definitely to be positive, to be optimistic and grateful for all of the positive things in your life. No matter where you are at and whatever you're dealing with, there is something positive in your life if you take the time to look for it. So yeah, definitely those are pathways to good mental health. And that ties in with our topic, our spirituality as well, to develop that and pick that religious way of expressing it that fits your spirituality. And again, taking the time to discover what is important to you as an individual and how you express that. So some thoughts for our guests as we close up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been an amazing session with you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. It's really been a great, amazing time. Yeah.
And yeah, we want to believe so many people how that you've taught so many people with all your experiences and with the help that you're even doing within the community. We just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
And tying into the pandemic again, it's been a long, almost a year and a half that we've been grinding this through with patience, and maybe we're getting to the point where we have anger, but we need to identify all of those emotions and find ways to keep coping and being strong for each other to get through this. And again, I recommend just having a personal curiosity as to what God is trying to teach us with this experience.
That's a very good one. Thank you very much. Yeah. So we really appreciate you, Greg. Thank you very much. And I can't wait for the next section that we're going to be having with you, Greg. We'll talk after this.
Yeah, definitely every time we can think of other ideas to branch into.
Right.
That's for sure.
That's right. Yeah. And for those who've been part of this about an hour, right? Thank you very much. Really appreciate you. Wherever you're joining from, I can't recall the names now. Yeah, I have a few people that have joined in and out of the province and also out of the country. I have a Godfrey Oria. I have a Mommy Iyavakela. Thank you very much. We love you so much, Mom.
Then I have
Joy Olabode. Thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. We love you so much. And yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I can't stop saying thank you because you made this happen. And yeah, we can't stop saying that. And also, do not forget to please share this. The video will still be up there. Feel free to share it with among your friends, families, groups, network. One way or the other, you're helping someone think of how you can help someone, and the only way is to share this information with them from a wealth of experience, and then that Greg has shared with us. And then the past episode is there, and then this is the concluding part of it. Thank you. And then you know what? We have a couple of weeks more to join the next episode. Yeah. In the next 2 weeks. And then, as Kemi said, every man out there, you have something in you. So happy Father's Day to all the men. To us, right? To all the men. Like she said, you have something in you. Do not look down on yourself. Just step up and keep possessing and keep impacting lives. And until then, we wanna wish you happy celebration of the Father's Day, and keep living the best that you can. Keep living the best that you can. Yeah, that you can. Yeah. All right, bye guys. Thank you.
Happy Father's Day to all.
Happy Father's Day, Greg. Yeah.